friends, and welcome to Valor, Strength of Mind. Today, we're going to be talking about anxiety. But before we get started, let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you ever have a really hard time sleeping because it's so hard to shut down your mind? Do you ever have so many thoughts that it makes it difficult for you to focus and do the things that you need to do? Do you ever worry that something bad is going to happen and this constant fear and worry takes over you? Do you ever experience physical sensations such as your heart beating really fast, or trembling, or sweating, or stomach aches and headaches? If you answer yes to some of these questions, then you may be struggling with some sort of anxiety. Now, anxiety is actually the fear or excessive worry about a perceived threat in the future, meaning that you constantly get worried that something bad will happen. Now, anxiety is one of the most treatable mental health disorders that there is. However, many people struggle in many years alone because they are ashamed or guilty of having to struggle with anxiety. But I am here to tell you that there's nothing to be ashamed of. Anxiety is very common. In fact, millions of people across the world and even in the US struggle with anxiety. And that can be due to many different things. Anxiety can sometimes be developed because of exposure to trauma. Anxiety can be developed because of high demands by family or sometimes even work environment. Or anxiety can also be developed by our society. We live in a society that is extremely fast-paced and they constantly ask us to multitask. So having so many things on our plate can also make us feel very anxious and make us feel fearful that we won't be able to live up to the expectation or that something bad may happen to us. There are many different types of anxiety, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to go over 6 of them, and that is generalized anxiety, social anxiety, agoraphobia, specific phobias, separation anxiety, and panic disorder. Let's begin with generalized anxiety. Generalized anxiety is marked by a fear or excessive worry, anxiety, of something bad happening, and that can be general. It can be being worried that something may happen to your family, that you may become ill, or you can get into an accident, or something negative can happen, or it can be worries about school or work, or just in general different things. Now, generalized anxiety can be marked by excessive worry. You can have physical symptoms such as headaches, stomach aches. You can also have a difficult time focusing, and you can have a difficult time falling asleep because it's very difficult to turn off that worry, and that is generalized anxiety. Another type of anxiety is separation anxiety. Separation anxiety is really marked by fear of something bad happening to one of your loved ones and fear of being away from them. So typically in separation anxiety, you will find that people have a really hard time being away from their loved ones or their main source of attachment. That can be a parent, that can be a spouse, or that can be your own children that you really are afraid to be away from. And that can be because you worry that if you are away from them, something bad will happen and you won't be able to be there to help them or protect them. If you have separation anxiety, you may notice that you are constantly having to be next to that person. You can be overly clingy. You have a hard time doing things on your own. You may notice that in children will want the parent to watch them even when they're playing in the house. They may want them to go with them to the restroom or just be with them in general or even sleep with them. And that can all be part of separation anxiety. Specific phobias refer to being afraid of specific things. Now, this is typically individuals who are afraid of, it can be a situation, it can be an event, or it can be an object or an animal. So for example, some people are afraid of going to concerts. Some people may avoid those large crowds because they don't like concerts, right? Or some people may be really afraid of flights. Other people may be very specifically afraid to an animal, such as snakes or spiders. And what phobias do is that when you come across that trigger, it really rises your fear and your anxiety level to the point where you are deeply distressed and afraid. Social anxiety refers to a fear of being around individuals. People who struggle with social anxiety really want to connect to others and have a social network. However, their fear is marked by being afraid of not knowing how to hold a conversation, of being judged by their peers, or even humiliated. And because of this, they avoid being in large crowds or being around people because they are afraid that they will somehow end up getting hurt or humiliated by their peers. Another type of anxiety is agoraphobia. Agoraphobia talks about an individual being specifically afraid of certain situations. So for example, they can be afraid of getting into public transportation, being in large crowds, or being in enclosed areas because they're afraid that something bad may happen and they won't be able to escape. And that's the key, their inability to escape. That's really their fear, and that is what agoraphobia is. Now, sometimes when this anxiety becomes very overwhelmed, people can also develop panic disorders. And what panic disorders mean is that it's a panic attack. Now, panic attacks are marked by physical sensations. So some people who have panic attacks may experience things such as their heart beating really fast, having a difficulty breathing, or overbreathing, which is hyperventilating, trembling or shaking. People will begin to sweat profoundly. Some people may have a sense of derealization, meaning that they feel that they can't really gauge reality. Some people may also feel like they're choking, and then some people may feel really dizzy and even feel like they're going to die and have a heart attack. Now, panic disorder is also very treatable, just like any other of the anxieties, as I mentioned. And it's important to know that there's different types of anxiety because at some point in our lives, all of us may be experiencing anxiety based on the situation or the circumstances. So how do we begin to treat anxiety? Well, I'm glad you asked. Anxiety can be treated with multiple techniques. So let's go over some of those techniques. We're going to discuss deep breathing, mindfulness or grounding, music, and also therapy. Now, breathing is one of the most important tools that we can use to help reduce anxiety. You may not know this, but our bodies are actually built to scan for danger. They're built to be anxious in a certain way because when we were cavemen, we needed to scan for danger. However, we're no longer cavemen, so we're not in immediate danger. However, the way that our brain knows if we're in danger is by the way that we breathe. So when we breathe very fast, like hyperventilate like this, what happens is that we're sending a signal to our brain that something's not okay. On the other hand, sometimes when we're afraid or worried, we also stop breathing. And you'll find that people may breathe like this. So they have shallow breaths. And what ends up happening is that, again, this sends a signal to your brain that you are in danger. So one of the best ways to help reduce anxiety is actually by using something called your diaphragm, which is in your stomach, and breathing deeply in with your nose and slowly out with your mouth. Because breathing in and out slowly actually allows enough oxygen to go into your brain, and it sends the signal that it's okay and it helps you relax. And that can be pretty simple. All that you do is that you put your hands in your belly, you breathe in with your nose, and you let out with your mouth slowly. And you breathe in, and you breathe out. And you breathe in, and you breathe out. The important part is being sure that as you breathe in, your stomach is expanding because you're breathing with your diaphragm, and as you breathe out slowly, your stomach is shrinking. And again, the more that you practice, the better that you'll get, but being able to control the way that we breathe when we're feeling anxious or afraid is really helpful in reducing those emotions. Another technique that you can use is listening to classical music. Classical or relaxing music actually helps the heart be able to slow it down and match the rhythm of the classical music, which typically it's about 60 beats per minute, which is what we want our heart to be. And it's not invasive, and it's one of the most simple tools to utilize to help reduce some of that anxiety. Another technique is practicing mindfulness, being in the moment or grounding yourself. A good way to ground yourself is by being able to look at your surroundings, pay attention to your body sensations, and sometimes find different things in the room that you can connect to the senses, such as something that you smell, something that you see, something that you can taste if possible, something that you can touch. So all of these things can really help in being able to ground ourselves and center ourselves and take us away from whatever it is that is making us worry. Another technique is being really aware of your thoughts. It's very important to understand that anxiety comes from the way that we think. Typically, there is a thought, and we call these automatic negative thoughts, that come into our head. And when this thought comes in, it impacts the way that we feel, and the way that we feel impacts the way that we react physically or with actions. So being aware of the thoughts and whether these thoughts are positive or negative, it's really important in beginning to address some of this anxiety. Now, I'm not going to go into detail with the thoughts because I will make another video about what are automatic negative thoughts and the 9 different patterns of automatic negative thoughts that there is. However, one of the best things that you can also do to address anxiety is go to therapy. A therapist will be able to help you not only identify the specific type of anxiety that you may be struggling with, but also tailor techniques to help you with that specific type of anxiety. So again, friends, these are just some of the basic techniques that can be applied to help reduce some anxiety. And I hope that that was helpful. Please feel free to research more on the internet and find more information on deep breathing or diaphragm breathing, on mindfulness, grounding, or also how thoughts influence the way that we feel and the way that we think. And most importantly, search for therapists around your area if that's something that you want to do. But in whatever you do, friends, I just want to remind you that you are in control, that you do have the choice to decide what you want to do and how you want to manage this anxiety. And it doesn't matter what you choose, but the important thing is that you choose something that is going to help you heal and move you towards living a more fulfilling life and the life that you deserve. So I want to thank you for your time, and remember that in whatever you do, carry on with valor. Thank you for watching my video. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you want more information on Valor Strength of Mind, you can follow me on Instagram at Valor Strength of Mind or at my website, valorstrengthofmind.com. Don't forget that next Thursday I will be posting a video and we will be talking about what are automatic negative thoughts and the different patterns or types of automatic negative thoughts that we can have. Thank you once again, and remember to carry on with valor.